welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
Hi everyone, my name is Joe.
So Joe, it's been a while since you've been on the channel.
Yeah, I come on, every couple weeks or something like that?
Yeah, it's worked out that way. We haven't seen you for a bit. I can't remember when, but welcome back.
Thank you. I think Sharon's doing damage control. She wants to make sure she keeps her subscribers and keeps it rolling here, so
I have Joe on. I gotta whip Joe out to get me some subscribers.
No, it's the exact opposite. I meant usually
I was like, that was a little bit vain.
You can only take little small doses of me, micro doses.
Maybe. So Joe, tell us what you've been up to.
Lots of work, you guys. I'm working full time, and then I'm doing actually landscaping. A buddy of mine owns a company. He does stone patios, pavements, and landscaping and stuff like that. So it's been extra long days. 5 in the morning, I get up a little bit before then, and then sometimes home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. But thank the Lord that I have Sharon. And I don't even know how to describe it. It's just. Thank you, Jesus, for that.
Ah, that is so sweet of you.
You always get Gatorade for me, and you make sure like you're understanding. You know I'm beat, and like you feed me, and you make my lunch in the mornings, and you help me walk it all up.
I like to take care of my man. Is what I like to do.
And if it wasn't for the experience that I had, the unfortunate experience of the past entanglement that I was in with the narcissist, we never would have met, you know? So
that's a weird thing about our relationship, because we actually met through the literally just about the worst thing that could ever happen to us happened at the same time.
At the same time, from a long distance away, and here we are today. So, and a lot of gardening. We just got done. Like we're a couple weeks ahead of schedule as far as doing the outside, like power washing the house, and like all these weird things I get in my head to cram into like my 1,000-page list. But we did the mulching of the beds yesterday. Sharon helped me with that, and beautiful flowers. Her and Paris picked out flowers and stuff. So it's just beautiful. It's awesome.
Guys, I'm so happy with how the yard's coming along. So Joe put this black mulch down, and I used to have this cat named Cana. Her name was C-A-N-A, Jesus' first miracle, Cana. Well, there's this plant, and it's probably called Canna, C-A-N-N-A, but I always call it my Cana plant. I have tried to grow these for years and years, and this is my second year since I've been here with you, Joe.
Yeah.
So we have this. You guys, I'm gonna have to take a picture of it. It looks so good with the black.
Yeah, look it up if you're ever bored or whatever. C-A-N-N-A. It's got a red, and against the black mulch, it like really pops.
It almost looks like it glows. The same with those petunias. We have these like light purple petunias that they glow in the dark.
And speaking of like the garden stuff like that, a very close friend of mine, actually my mentor, when I first got sober many moons ago, told me, prayer is our most valuable tool. He reminded me often, though, he said, Joe, you could pray for potatoes and tomatoes and corn all you want, but until you take up the shovel and you get the water, ain't no potatoes growing. And it reminded me, as far as my recovery from alcoholism, just as far as like prayer is absolutely essential for me. Like, I was beyond human aid. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. Unless I take action, though, like, it's just, unless it's just meant to be, it ain't gonna happen, And we were talking today, and I shared with Sharon one of my Joeisms, because we're gonna talk about this, is it took me many moons for my brain to make amends to my heart for the decisions that it made. And because Sharon wanted to talk about making amends to ourselves. It's important. I learned this a long time ago.
Forgiving yourself.
Forgiving yourself. Yeah. I call it amends for this reason. There's so many times in my life that I said I was sorry, and I did it over and over and over again. But the word amend comes from like the Latin. I think the root word is like amendum or something like that. It literally means to change. So when you think of making amends, like back in the day when our founders founded the United States and the Declaration of Independence, you had your amendments and you had your Bill of Rights, but if they wanted to make a change, they would make an amendment to it. So part of forgiveness is actually to change. But
I just want to back up just a little bit, why we're even saying this to begin with. So, Joe and I had, it wasn't really an argument, but we had, I don't know, the issue. We had a disagreement, I guess, on something when it came to like emotions and different things like that. For this, it doesn't really matter, but this is where it came from. you guys know I've been struggling with my son turning 18. It's really bothered me. And part of what I'm dealing with is guilt. And so when we were talking about this the other day, Joe, you mentioned to me, and this was really the first time I even thought about it. Like, when are you going to forgive yourself? Because, I felt bad for this and that happened. And he's like, well, when are you going to forgive yourself? And I never thought of that ever. Like, you bring things up sometimes, Joe, like you guys. One of the first times I was ever angry with Joe, and I don't get angry at him often, just so you know, was when we, early in our phone conversation days, Joe said to me something along the lines
Well, we were
of...
talking about the quote-unquote relationship. We call it entanglement that you were in with the narcissist.
Yeah.
You're talking about that a little bit, and I know that you were really angry, and you, like, Karen, Sharon had told me she wanted to kick him in the nuts. And I was like, yeah, I get it, this and that. But she was literally like, what?
I thought he knew I was serious.
No. So go ahead. We were talking about like how whacked out it was, he was and stuff. And then I asked her a question.
So then Joe said to me at one point, here I was at the time believing that this was like a lopsided entanglement. He was 100% to blame. I was perfect angel. So Joe said to me, what was your role? And like,
what was your part?
Yeah, what was your part? And what do you mean, what was my part? I married the wrong person. And you told me, and you said it gently, and I really appreciate this about Joe, because you do walk the walk. So you were like, you know what? Not that it wasn't mainly his fault or whatever, but I didn't realize that you were perfect.
Yeah, what was your part in that? And my perspective... And the whole game changed one time. Went no contact. I've been no contact for years now, but it was about 4 months. And out of the blue, this question, it was like a God question. It was like, well, if she was the problem and she's no longer with you and she's out of this whole thing, then why are you still angry at the world and pissed off? And that's when I was just like, well, maybe I was part of the problem too. Like, it's not to say that she was an angle. What she did was right. It's just, what role did I play? And
even just the role in accepting or letting somebody treat you that way.
Oh, it's nuts. Because this is how I was able to, like, kind of synergistically, like, see how familiar or how different yet how the same we are, like, with narcissists.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about denial? They're in denial? I was in denial. You want to talk about self-seeking? Like, I would...
And this doesn't mean, by the way, that you're bad or that, the narcissist isn't so bad. It's just, basically, how did this happen to us? What was our role in letting it happen? You didn't... nobody marries a narcissist knowing it's a narcissist. I mean, who would do that? But we did... Many of us married people who literally there were red flags all over the place.
Yeah, and if we want to like say, and I'm speaking on my experience because I don't know yours, but in my experience there was many red flags, and then it was just like, yeah. But at the time, it was just, I don't see it the way I do now. Then I was like, well, why did you choose to be in an abusive relationship for 20 plus years?
Yeah, because ask yourself, and I do this often, would it be okay for my own daughter or Joe, for one of your sons, to be in this type of, quote unquote relationship? Would that be okay with you?
No.
Then why is it okay for us?
And then I thought to myself, like, but I love this person, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And then I started thinking more logically, like, I had to sleep with my wallet literally underneath my pillow because she was also, she had comorbid conditions, including an addiction, active addiction. And, like, she stole money from me. All these things, I'm like, maybe I'm lying to myself. Maybe I don't love her. And I was so defensive because I know when I love somebody, and it was like an ego hit. Like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was lying to myself. So all these things, you guys, we began to do shadow work, I call it. It's the stuff underneath that you have to peel back. You have to have about 2% honesty. If you got a little bit of honesty, if you're empathetic, then chances are you have some intuition and to look at yourself.
This is very difficult work, by the way, you guys. Joe doesn't mind doing this type of work. I run like hell in the other direction. I don't like it. I don't like it. You know, why did this have to happen to me? Why do I have to go through everything from my childhood on in order to be a healthy person? It's almost like a resentment. Like I'm still being punished. I don't want to do it. But doing it is how everything changes.
It does, because you start to focus on yourself and you're like, holy shit.
You become a person that you never even dream that you could be.
I became part of the problem. I was part of the problem.
Yes.
And my mentor told me a long time ago, if you have a problem, you better hope it's yours, because you got a good chance that you could change it. And the whole game changed from there. From that point forward, like a simple shift in perspective, my perception changed, and it was good. Here's where it's leading though. So when you're doing this shadow work, it's strongly suggested that you keep a neutral like view, like you're just looking at the facts, nothing more, nothing less, not reading into them.
Even with yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
The problem is sometimes as human beings we're emotional. Sometimes I believe too emotional, where our logic is like out the door. But you start to look at yourself like, man, I was a bad father, I was a bad parent. Like, I wasn't the best husband. Like, there's things I could have done. Like, I don't even have my shit together. Like, and you start to judge yourself. And it's like, you're able to forgive, but not ever forget, is what I say. But then you got to think about yourself and forgiving yourself.
Well, you know what's difficult with this, and has been very unwelcoming to me. This isn't good news. You know, you're with a narcissist, you don't know what the hell's going on. You're so confused, and you somehow eventually discover narcissism, right? And then from there, it's okay, oh my gosh, the narcissist should change. They'll want to change. Of course they're going to want to change. Who wouldn't? If I had these issues, I'd want to change. And, you know, without getting into the psycho, mumbo jumbo there, at the end of the day, it's us that need to change. That is how we move forward.
Layer by layer, the onion peels. And
it sucks, but it's true.
And then I realize, holy shit, what about my own childhood trauma? Maybe that's why I'm codependent. What is codependency? Like, am I? Like, it's just enough to be able to see the truth, to let all that bad shit that we've been trying to deflect on a narcissist, and you have a chance to change, because all that shit is in the way of the sunlight of the spirit, and you start to getting rid of that old shit and being aware of it, bring it to the light. There's a crack in our hearts for sure, because many of our hearts were broken over this, to say the least. That's good, because
well, it's like we said at the beginning. This is literally just about the worst thing. I say just about, because if something fatal happened to our children, that would be worse. So it's just about the worst thing that could happen, but something good can come out of it. It really can. It doesn't seem like it at the time. And I'm actually going through this right now, you guys. This happened to me a couple of years ago. I guess it was 2017. I had this, just for the sake of the video, an encounter where God healed my codependence. But with that happening, I was on a whole new level of looking at myself, and it's happening again this time, you guys, but it's with my childhood. So I'm going through it now, and it's very difficult, but I know once I'm at the end, once I can look at myself honestly and say, all right, you know what? Because Joe has said this so many times, it's so easy to blame your parents for things, and not that mine were perfect or yours were or whatever, but again, it's, well, what was I like as a child? Even though just like with
how am I as a parent?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Am I expecting too much from other people, but letting myself get away with things, and then I don't know.
It's like an excuse not to look at ourselves and grow.
Yeah.
And the crack in our heart has to be there. I call it being perfectly broken, because that crack will allow the sunlight of the spirit to come in. But the shadow work is essential, and then catching ourselves. Like realizing on this list of people that we've harmed here and there, like we need to be on that list. And the beautiful part about recovery is, while you're recovering, you're learning to love yourself. Like, you're worth saving, because in our situation, God saved us. So if our Creator plucked up two of us and saved us, then it's obvious that we need to grow more in the likeness of our Creator.
Now, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, Do you remember, so seriously, I'm asking you, do you remember the other day when we were talking about this and you started talking to me about forgiveness and, because this wasn't related to my child, right? So forgiveness, but you were saying, so like with that as the context, you did the best you could. Like, you know what I mean? Because I think in our own minds, we have this like image of this perfect childhood, like in this case, that we want our kids to have this perfect marriage or this perfect life, and then it doesn't happen.
And that's a tough thing. I think it's important to recognize, though, when you get to that point, there's a part of you that wants to forgive yourself, because otherwise, what are you doing this work for?
But it helped me the other day when you told me, you did the best you could. I mean, what else were you supposed to do? We were in, and this is for you guys too. When we're dealing with this, we are in unnatural positions.
Trauma. It's
yes,
just pure
yes.
trauma. Wow.
And then you're trying to raise kids and go to work, and oh my gosh.
It's overwhelming, guys. It's like these things that we encounter were so toxic.
And we're making decisions at this time.
Yeah, we're making decisions based on fear and emotions, and nothing good happens.
You don't even know what's real in your own world.
The only thing you know is, like, for me, is tunnel vision. Got to work to pay the mortgage. And if I do that, then I'm okay. But then living with hyper anxiety and CPTSD, and every minute you don't know what could go wrong, is crazy.
And then later, so this is happening at the time with the narcissist, and later we're punishing ourselves because we weren't in our tip-top form. I mean, there has to be a level of forgiveness so that you can move on. And for many of us, you guys, it sucks having to start over. I'm not going to say it's like this great thing, but there is a positive layer to it. You can reinvent yourself. Joe and I have both said to each other, like, for me, for sure, I'm the best version I've ever been. I want to keep growing. So Joe has me at my best. So there are some advantages, you know what I mean, to being able to start over. You're a different, better person than you were.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's like, as you go through your shadow work and you're looking at, like, your part, if you get to that point, it's important to kind of be non-judgmental when you start to look at yourself, to understand how screwed up you were in your own eyes. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just talking from my own experience. So what else do you want to talk about as far as, like, the self-worth thing, or like forgiving yourself? What do you how do you do that? Like, what do you do? How are you working through it?
Well, as I'm working through it right now, but largely for me, you said that to me the other day, and I just, just to recap, he had told me, you did the best you could, and me feeling guilty about, my son not having his graduating high school. It wasn't the way I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? The end wasn't the same. And Joe's telling me, well, you have to forgive yourself. So I've been thinking about this over the last week, and I'm better. I'm better than I was, because I get very emotional. That's actually another thing I'm working on. But I get emotional, especially when it's related to my kids, and I was just feeling horrible. But since then, Joe, that has really, I'm bringing to my mind, like, some of the things that I went through, and I really did try to make the best decisions for my kids. I didn't make any decisions without their well-being in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, we did the best we could at the time.
Yeah.
And
we were dealing with something horrible at the same time.
Oh, it's the worst thing I ever went through. So speaking on that, I wanted to talk a little bit about, remember, like, how you told me sometimes, he's like, Joe, the way you see yourself isn't always, or the way you see things isn't always, like, it's not the way it is. Like, sometimes my perspective gets out of whack. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, like, while I was going through that trauma, now, it's a no-brainer, you guys, everybody's affected, the kids are too. But part of that trauma was, like, I was thinking that my kids thought the same way I did.
Yeah.
I got two teenage boys. They're used to, like, the chaos, and they know how their mom is, and they're doing okay. Like, I'm sure there's issues that they have to address when their time is, if they're ready, and when, but it's nothing the way I was feeling in my head. So sometimes when Sharon talks about, like, her son and him graduating, and, like, she wanted better for him and this and that, and she's freaking out in her head, and I don't mean like that, but, like, it doesn't mean that he feels that way. And it's important to remember, like, sometimes the way, they always say feelings aren't facts. Sometimes the way we perceive things and we feel doesn't mean that other people are going through the same trauma.
That's another good point to remember. That's helpful too. And maybe some of you can relate to that. Just feeling, I mean, I feel guilty. I feel bad that my kids didn't have the childhood I dreamed for them, and it bothers me. But it's something I'm working on with Joe, and it has helped me to take those tidbits and work towards it.
Indirectly, like, we help the people that we love by self-actualization, by becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be. And that alone, you don't need to say nothing or do nothing. It's just your whole aura is just going to give off hope and light and love and all the good things in life to your children.
You know what, Joe? I agree, and that's like a perfect place to end. So will you come back soon? So maybe we can talk more about this.
Yeah, I haven't been on as much, you guys, because a lot of the past videos that we've done, I've been in a very dark place, even through recovery, and have struggled. And finally, probably a couple months ago, like, I broke through. A couple of things landed in my favor, and nothing major, but enough to get some momentum and start doing good. So I need to talk. I need to start talking more and being used to talking more topics on, like, the positive things and stuff like that. You know, because if I can get through this and be okay, anybody can.
All right, so we will see you soon. I will see you guys in a couple of days. I hope everyone's well, and we'll see you next video.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.